this is Seema and I'm back with a new lesson on extreme adjectives. Well, I believe all of us know what adjectives are, right? Well, for those who don't, an adjective is basically a word which describes the quality or the quantity of a noun. Okay, so adjectives talk about the quality or the quantity of a noun. So let's take a noun, for example, a girl. If you have to describe the quality of the girl, I can say she is a beautiful girl or she is a tall girl, and therefore that becomes my adjective. If I'm going to take another noun like, say, a pen or 2 pens, I'm talking about the quantity, and therefore 2 pens or 1 pen, 1 or 2 becomes the adjective. But do you know that adjectives have varying degrees or levels? So one adjective can have different levels, a higher level or a lower level. Let's look at what this actually means, okay? So we take a noun like water, okay? And I've tried drawing a thermometer to show you the temperature of the water, okay? So let's take an adjective to describe water, which is cold, okay? Now, if the water is not very cold, which is my adjective, I will say that the water is a little cold. Okay, not very cold. Okay, maybe it's around 10 degrees Celsius. Now the water gets a little colder, okay, and therefore then my adjective, has a lower degree, and I say the water is rather cold. Okay, maybe now it's come down to, say, 5 degrees Celsius. Okay, it's getting colder. But now the level of the adjective drops some more, okay, and I say the water is very cold. And now we're down to 2 degrees Celsius. That's quite cold for me, okay. But then when it comes down to 0, which is, very, very, very cold, I won't say very cold, I will say it is extremely cold. Extremely cold. So basically, instead of saying extremely cold, can I use another word which says freezing? If I were to say the water is extremely cold, the other way of saying it could also be the water is freezing. So therefore, adjectives which have the word extremely, so in them would be an extreme adjective. So in an extreme adjective, you need not add the word extremely. Therefore, extreme adjectives are the highest form of an adjective, the most highest degree of any specific adjective. For your information, I have put in certain adjectives. These are regular adjectives, and I'm going to show you how to make them extreme, okay? So if you have a word like angry, you can say I'm rather angry, I'm a little angry, I'm very angry. But instead of saying I'm extremely angry, you can use an extreme adjective saying I am furious. The same goes for the word bad. For bad, instead of saying extremely bad, I can say terrible. Or I can say awful. Or I can say horrible. The use of extremely terrible, extremely awful, extremely horrible is actually incorrect English, because these are extreme adjectives which automatically include the word extremely. Okay? Another word, big, which is a regular adjective, I can say huge, which means extremely big, but I use the word huge, which automatically includes the word extremely. Or I could say gigantic. Our next word is clean. I could call that as spotless, which actually means extremely clean. Extremely crowded can also be called as packed. Extremely dirty can also be called as filthy. Extremely good can be called as wonderful or marvelous. Or you could say fantastic. Extremely funny can be called hilarious. Extremely hot can be called boiling. So instead of saying this water is extremely hot, you can say the water is boiling. Okay. A word like hungry, if you want to say extremely hungry, the other way of saying that would be starving. You can say I am starving as opposed to saying I'm extremely hungry. Interesting can be captivating. Or you can also call it fascinating. Old can be called ancient. Pretty can be called gorgeous. You don't say extremely gorgeous, you just say she's gorgeous. Okay. Scary can be called, well, terrified or terrifying. Extremely small can be called tiny. And extremely surprising can be called astounding. Extremely tired can be called exhausted. And a word like ugly, instead of saying extremely ugly, you can say hideous. So these are some of the regular adjectives made into extreme adjectives when you are trying to talk about that adjective being in its highest level or the highest degree. But now I'm going to talk about certain rules that you need to know when you are applying an extreme adjective in your sentence. Alright, now the first rule to apply an extreme adjective is to make sure that if you are indeed applying an extreme adjective, you cannot ever add a comparative or a superlative degree for that adjective. What is a comparative or a superlative degree? A comparative or a superlative degree talks about words with the ER or the EST added at the end of the adjective. For some adjectives like bigger, we say bigger, which is the comparative degree, and we say biggest if it is a superlative degree. But an extreme adjective, as we already know, is the highest form of an adjective. You can't go any higher than that, can you? So you will never say it is more freezing or freezinger. That's wrong English. You will just say freezing. You do not add a comparative or a superlative degree. Okay. The second one is the usage of different adverbs. Regular adverbs like angry, small, big, they use adverbs like little, very is used very often, rather is also used, but when you are talking about extreme adjectives, even though you don't need the support of these words, you can use some special adverbs like absolutely. So I can say that the ride or the roller coaster was absolutely terrifying. Terrifying is a is an extreme adjective, but I will use a different adverb. I won't use extremely terrifying because extremely is a part of the extreme adjective, but I can use absolutely. I can also use another adverb like utterly. Okay, so the girl was utterly, or you can say the room was utterly filthy. Okay, so you can use very specific or very different adverbs when you are using extreme adjectives, which are quite different from the normal adverbs you would use when you are talking about a regular adjective. Okay, now absolute adjectives are very similar to extreme adjectives, but the reason why it is a part of the rule when you are talking about extreme adjectives is because absolute adjectives are also extreme adjectives, which are adjectives of the highest degree. But an extreme adjective or an absolute adjective in this case would only answer your question by a yes or a no. You can't use any adverb for an absolute adjective, even though it is actually an extreme adjective. So a word which answers yes or no, what could it be? An adjective like dead. Can I say I am utterly dead? The bird is utterly dead. The bird is a little dead. The bird is very dead. No, the bird is dead. It's either a definite yes or a no. Another word like pregnant. I can't be extremely pregnant. I can't be absolutely pregnant. I can't be rather pregnant. I am either pregnant or I am not pregnant. So it's a yes or a no, right? That's what an absolute adjective is. Another example, a word like first. I can't be absolutely first. I can't be very first or rather first. I'm either I am first or I am not first. I am the first person to land on the moon, or someone else was the first person to land on the moon. So these are the basic rules you use when you are trying to make a sentence which includes an extreme adjective. Okay, well, that brings me to the end of this lesson on extreme adjectives. I hope you found it very interesting. Well, I'll be back with some more lessons. Until then, this is me saying take care.